If you come across this video before going to bed, it's definitely your lucky day. He's the terminator of late-night insomnia. Watching this will surely send you into a sweet dreamland. Since leaving the shelter where he lived for an entire winter, Ake wandered through the forest for 2.5 kilometers. Finally, near a stream, he discovered a natural treasure spot, a half-meter deep foundation pit perfect for building a new home. After clearing away the tangled branches, Ake picked up a shovel and started digging. Since it often rains in the forest, the soil was relatively soft, saving him a lot of energy. Plus, this plot was already half finished, so in less than half a day he dug a pit big enough for 2 people. The walls also needed simple reinforcement. Then he gathered many wild trees. The trees were stripped of their branches, lying bare on the ground. He selected a few and carried them back to the camp to build the framework. Then he dug smaller pits within the large pit. Each hole had to be half a meter deep. Only then could he continue building the walls, until the logs were level with the earth wall behind. He brought in sturdier tree trunks and firmly inserted them into the foundation pit to serve as the main beams of the shelter. To ensure the new home could last 100 years, Ake used 6 of them. Now even a missile wouldn't scare him, because fear wouldn't help anyway. After precise measurements with a tape measure, he sawed off the excess parts of the timber. This time, he planned to build a sloped roof to allow rain and snow to slide off more easily. Then he carved notches at both ends of the logs and set them in place to serve as the shelter's crossbeams. To ensure they'd stay together forever, he connected them with nails. Considering the shelter's sturdiness, he chose timber with a diameter exceeding 20 centimeters. Though they were quite heavy, it really wore out Ake's small frame. After reinforcing with more nails, he couldn't manage the middle crossbeam alone, so he added support poles at both ends, using a rolling method to position it bit by bit. Smartly done. Then he outlined the roof's general framework. With the axe swinging powerfully, the forest echoed with banging sounds. With the pillars as dividers, he could easily slot the logs in place, then filled the gaps with mud and rocks. After completing 2 walls, Ake was already panting from exhaustion. I'm really getting too old for this. But to move into the new home soon, he kept pushing forward until the 3rd wall was finished. Seeing the sun about to set, he stopped working, carried his bag back to the underground shelter, washing up by the stream on the way to relieve some of the day's fatigue. The next day, he carried a broken saw and a big date. But the weather wasn't cooperating, raindrops fell steadily. So he had to quickly finish the roof. When a quarter of it was done, he added a layer of waterproofing to have a place to shelter from the rain, to avoid catching a cold that would delay progress. Ake put on the raincoat his grandma gave him, making it much easier to continue working on the roof. He switched to thinner timber, which significantly reduced the weight, just laying them side by side and securing them with nails. Luckily, he brought 2.5 pounds of nails, no need to worry about running out. After finishing the waterproofing, Ake couldn't wait to step up and test it. If it weren't so steep, he'd want to practice singing, dancing, and basketball on it. The sturdiness was still reliable. Then he added waterproofing to the roof. 1 layer wasn't enough, so he added another, 360-degree protection with no blind spots. Then he secured 2 more branches to hold the waterproofing in place, so the soil wouldn't slide off easily. There were still gaps in the back wall. Ake found more logs to fill them and tidied up the waterproofing. Considering the shelter's concealment, it's the familiar formula, the familiar process. Dead branches and rotten wood mixed with soil, blending it with the surrounding environment. Ake is 30 years old, experiencing the feeling of being buried 50 years early. Since it's a semi-underground shelter, for easy access, stairs were naturally essential. Today's lunch was canned beef. Lacking proper cooking equipment, he had to make do with this for now. For the final wall of the cabin, the workload was cut in half, so with the help of nails, it was quickly stacked up to the eaves. At this moment, heavy rain began to fall. Looks like he couldn't go back today. Fortunately, he came prepared in the morning. So Ake wove a simple bed with branches and slipped into his sleeping bag, falling asleep peacefully. Today was a bright, sunny day. Ake continued collecting logs in the forest. The only advantage is an endless supply of timber. After chopping off excess branches with his axe, he sealed up the remaining walls, then secured them with 20-centimeter nails. Through repeated hammering, the walls and the cabin's pillars were tightly bound. Since there weren't many materials available, Ake had to make do with what was at hand, using wild clay dug from the riverbank to fill the gaps between the logs. To live under the sunlight, opening a window became necessary. After marking the size on an acrylic sheet, he nailed wooden planks to form the frame. Next, it was time for the saw to shine. While you're all engrossed, have a taste of sawdust. After cutting out the opening, he added another layer to the window frame. Now he could slot the acrylic sheet in. Still not fully reassured, he carefully reinforced the surroundings. After finishing, he ate some snacks to recharge. In early summer, the forest was lush with greenery, quietly enjoying the mental and physical pleasure brought by nature. He then found a wooden board, using it as a straight edge to saw the uneven timber into a neat fringe. The bottom beam also needed trimming to fit better when setting the door frame. This door frame would be perfect for hanging spring festival couplets, but Ake had no use for that. After clearing away the trimmed wood scraps, he went to the stream. Recalling the previous shelter's lack of water, he specially built a water storage pool. Now he didn't have to worry about that. Resources were abundant, allowing for long-term living. Birch bark is dry and flammable, perfect for kindling. Just a few strikes with a flint, and it quickly ignites into a roaring fire. A breath attack from not brushing teeth for 10 years made the fire burn even stronger. Tonight's dinner, besides canned beef, included tomatoes and bell peppers. The ever-particular Ake had his own standards for cooking ingredients. He found a branch and skewered the tomatoes and bell peppers, baked over the residual heat of charcoal, making them taste even more delicious. After a long day of work, he was exhausted, too lazy to return to the underground shelter. He chose to sleep in the half-finished cabin. The next day, waking up to the sound of forest birds chirping, notice a piece of wood added at the door. This isn't just any wood, it's the wood from Wang Wei's poem. Time to collect more planks. A fallen tree was today's target. With the saw's high-powered output, sawdust nearly flew into my eyes. As long as the saw is held steady, any number of planks could be obtained. Then Ake nailed them to the eaves. The middle parts needed to be cut at an angle for a perfect fit when joined. Besides that, there was the door to make. 3 planks set the general size. Just place 2 planks underneath and connect them with nails. Then saw off the excess, and a solid wooden door was complete. Ake moved it over to check, to see if anything wasn't fitting, then handed it to the saw for further adjustments. But no rush to install it yet, because there were still many indoor details to perfect, like the bed for sleeping. The haphazardly placed branches were nearly breaking his old back, so it needed an upgrade fast. Ake first raised the bed legs, then used planks instead. At the connection points of the rounded branches and pillars, notches needed to be cut to fit perfectly when laid in place. The remaining gaps were precisely measured with a tape and trimmed with an axe to fit perfectly, with nails for reinforcement, ensuring it wouldn't collapse in a lifetime. After smoothing out the surface burrs, he laid down his grandma's old yoga mat, making it much more comfortable to sleep on. During a break from the busy work, rain fell in the forest again. Raindrops hit every green leaf. Ake really enjoyed this feeling. After the rain cleared, he gathered more planks, cutting them to the right size to fill the space under the bed, so he wouldn't worry about anything hiding there. To make better use of space, he added a few shelves on the wall to hold the bottles and jars brought from home. Though he didn't have much stuff now, life has to be built up slowly, right? Then he took out a new spray gun from his bag, using a lighter to test the planks. After brief high-temperature carbonization, the planks would last longer, preventing rot and slowing insect damage. Wherever the flame touched, the wood revealed deep textures. After finishing the treatment, Ake found the eaves less and less pleasing, so he decisively dismantled half of them. Now it looked much better. What do you think, Yinzu? Then he went back to tinkering indoors. He dug the floor down 20 centimeters, moving the soil to the roof to insulate and increase concealment. Then used logs as joists, adding some height, before starting to lay the new floor. If he encountered uneven spots, a little trimming would do. The rest was up to the nails. After finishing the floor, the sky had darkened. Ake went to the river to fetch water and washed off the dust from his body. Back at camp, he hung a kerosene lamp at the door, adding a bit of light to the dark night. Then he lit a campfire, relying on it to cook food thoroughly. For dinner, Ake prepared foil with oil, adding various chopped vegetables. A big mix cooked together, tightly wrapped, thrown into the fire for half an hour to cook. Though in the wilderness, he never skimped on food. After all, Ake's goal was to become a 5-star chef in wilderness construction. Waking up the next day, putting on gloves, another day of hard work, but much freer than city life. No need to listen to a boss's orders. He dug 3 feet in front of the door, deciding Filippo to transform it into an open courtyard. Waking up in the morning, sitting at the door, breathing the fresh forest air, with a strong cup of coffee to perk up. It feels absolutely perfect. After digging to the ideal depth, he expanded outward to create the cabin's platform, taking a walk now and then, perfectly ergonomic. Then he took out some wild peaches he found, sprinkling them evenly on the roof. With fertile soil and a hot, rainy environment, the roof would soon sprout grass. To live a good life, your roof must have a bit of green. Looks like Ake was deeply hurt by the neighbor Old Wang. Though it's not yet winter, insulation cotton was already prepared. Every gap needed careful filling to prevent cold air from sneaking in. The door was connected with hinges, making it open and close smoothly. Since there was no handle yet, he found a curved branch in the forest. After some sanding, it was ready to be revealed. Then he fixed it to the door and tested it with the spray gun. Now it's part of the family. Since there was no decent furniture indoors, Ake fully utilized his crafting skills, building a dining table, trimming off the excess, ready for use that evening. The day passed quickly. The clean-loving Ake washed up at the river, then lit a warm campfire at the door, preparing for dinner. The familiar foil wrap again, but tonight, there's meat. Coated with oil, baked in the fire for half an hour. When it's medium cooked, tear it into pieces, mix with vegetables in a wrap, add other seasonings. Bake in the fire for another 10 minutes. Soon, a deluxe hand-rolled pancake is ready. Ake gobbled it up, enjoying his handmade delicacy. With supplies running low, he made a trip back home, returning to find the roof lush and green. This was the effect he wanted. The cabin seemed to have had a visitor. The door was wide open, but the interior was untouched, just as he left it. Though there was an extra stick. No time to think about it. Ake got back to work. He collected a large number of branches from the forest, chopping off the excess with an axe. Easy there, buddy, don't hit me on the head. After processing all the logs, he perfected the open courtyard in front of the door, using the same method as building the walls, setting up the basic framework, digging foundation pits for the posts, securing the bottom tightly. Now the logs could easily be slotted in. The outer gaps were filled with soil. The other side was done the same way. 2 eagles circled overhead. Curiosity drove him to film a short video. Then he measured the courtyard's width with his feet. His eyes were the ruler. Then he started his beloved saw. After some friendly negotiation, he gathered branches of the right length to fill the remaining walls, sawing off the parts protruding beyond the steps. Then laying joists on the ground, gathering more planks to finish. The floor was secured with nails. Since the area wasn't large, the task was quickly completed, and he didn't forget to clean the site. As a renowned carpenter, baseboards were naturally included. Truly a tattoo artist showing off in my face. Now it looks so much more comfortable. With the arrival of midsummer, temperatures soared to 35 degrees. The muggy weather made Ake a bit irritable, but there was still much to do. Today, he planned to make an outdoor dining table for a future wild wife, to share a candlelit dinner together. Compared to building the cabin, this task was much easier, just a clever combination of nails and planks, and it was done in minutes. As evening arrived, with the new equipment, Ake couldn't wait to try it out, enjoying a delicious dinner with the sound of insects chirping. But after 2.5 minutes, he couldn't take it, too many mosquitoes. He hurried back to the shelter. The next morning, he widened the steps, then wrapped the surroundings with logs to prevent soil from falling and collapsing. The ground was covered with log slices. Looking at the finished courtyard, Ake couldn't help but give himself a thumbs up. When Ake returned to the camp, the forest was full of fallen leaves. With the arrival of autumn, the surroundings felt desolate, but there was an unexpected joy. Ripe blackberries in the bushes, temporarily satisfying Ake's appetite. Back at the shelter, pushing open the door, looking at the cabin, a familiar feeling washed over him. Untouched for days, the windows were covered in spider webs. After a quick cleanup, he began unpacking his equipment. To avoid cooking in the dark at night, he brought 2 large light bulbs. After marking their positions, he fixed the bases in place, then screwed in the energy-saving bulbs. Adding a protective cover, he handled electrical work with ease. Considering the aesthetics of the wiring, he added clips to secure it, running the wire to the window. The door needed lighting too. Finally, he fixed a converter by the bed with a 3-prong socket and a 1-touch switch. This guy was well prepared. Now he could use his new portable power supply, connecting the two. Flipping the switch, the bulbs lit up the entire cabin. No need to worry about power, with a portable solar panel on standby. The old kerosene lamp, transformed by Ake's skilled hands, became the cabin's anti-theft light. Besides that, he brought a drill. Connecting the plug to the socket, it was ready to work. The rough tabletop was polished by the machine, smoother than his ex-girlfriend's face. Time slipped away quietly. It was evening before he knew it. Ake lit a campfire in front of the door. Time for the familiar little kitchen. First, a full-body rub for the chicken with seasoning. After marinating, wrap it tightly in foil. But the fire wasn't ready yet. Only when the flames died down, leaving glowing coals, was it the perfect time to cook. Waiting an hour for the food to cook through, the ingredients were perfectly done. The chicken was crispy outside, tender inside, fragrant and delicious. Every bite was pure bliss. An infrared camera caught a moose visiting at night. If Ake weren't sleeping so soundly, he'd have gotten up to offer it a bullet, making it tomorrow's meal. Late autumn brought endless rain and falling temperatures. It was time to set up the stove to prepare for the cold, long winter. The portable stove was easy to install. With a pre-made chimney hole, he opened a small hole in the roof to extend the chimney outside. Then filled the chimney gaps with rocks. The walls were lined with insulation cotton. Since the cabin was made of solid wood, long-term heat exposure could easily cause a fire. Safety measures had to be taken in advance. Once everything was ready, Ake used wood chips to ignite the dry wood. As smoke rose from the chimney, the wilderness cabin instantly felt like home. Winter and frost were coming soon. To keep the interior warmer, Ake sealed the door's gaps with cotton insulation. Even the door frame wasn't overlooked, ensuring no cold air could sneak in. The interior walls were treated the same way. When it comes to insulation, Ake claims the top spot. Let him boast about it. The next day, sunlight streamed through the forest. Birds chirped in the branches, indicating nice weather today. Waking up to embrace the sun, full of positive energy, before the snow falls. He needed to stock up on firewood. The local weather was unpredictable. As premium kindling in the wild, in Ake's eyes, these crisp birch barks were treasures. Since the branches were already down, might as well use them as stove fuel. After peeling, they'd decompose faster. Seeing Ake again, it was deep winter. A thin layer of snow covered the cabin's front. Exhausted from a 2.5-kilometer hike, he sat on a bench to rest. The cold kept him from lingering outside. He hurried inside to chop some firewood, lighting a fire for the winter. While the room warmed up, Ake nailed a board to the wall. To stay updated with current events, he brought a television. After connecting the set-top box, he found a straight wild branch to serve as a utility pole. After sawing it down, he brought it back, chopping off excess branches with an axe, then carving a notch on top to securely hold the wires later. The other end connected to the TV. Unsure if there was a signal, he nervously flipped the switch. The moment the TV program appeared, Ake was overjoyed. This guy actually pulled it off. As night fell, he lit the roof lamp at the door. In the quiet forest glow, the winter cabin was serene and cozy. Dinner was a delicious burger with fries. Eating heartily while watching a football match. This wilderness life was looking up. Extreme cold froze the entire stream. Without a water source, Ake used the saw to cut the ice. The ice blocks looked a bit dirty, and they weren't clean at all, filled with autumn leaves and debris. But for Ake, used to wilderness life, this wasn't a big deal. Is the neighbor still starving for days? He couldn't back down over such a small issue. Filling a whole cart with ice, he trudged back to the camp with effort. Carrying over 10 kilograms, the long journey plus the cart slowing him down had already exhausted Ake to the point of questioning life. So he sat at the door to rest for a moment before moving the supplies indoors. The inside was now a mess, leaving him no place to even sit. As for why the stove looked like this, the reason was, he planned to build a new brick fireplace. Facing temperatures of -10 degrees, this portable stove wasn't enough to thoroughly warm the entire cabin. But before retiring, it still had to contribute. Lighting the dry wood inside the stove, the roaring flames drove away the indoor chill. While placing the ice blocks nearby, the continuous heat would soon melt them. Once the indoor temperature rose, Ake took off his heavy coat and started working. He used a saw to cut the floor, then removed the wooden boards covering it and outlined the general framework. This spot would be where the fireplace went. Then he poured in a whole bag of sand, mixed with melted ice water to make the foundation stronger. If the ice ran out, he'd just add more. Now he could officially start building. First, he cut a base from wild bricks, then mixed mortar in a plastic bucket. Thanks to 2.5 years of masonry experience, his skills were as smooth as water. To better secure the small iron door, he connected it with wire, inserting it into the brick seams. Then continued stacking the walls. Once the basic framework was set, he placed the matching stove opening in position. At this point, the fireplace was half complete. During a lunch break, he made himself some instant noodles. Lunchtime was limited, so he made do with this for now. The chimney was also built with bricks, stacked up. Fortunately, it didn't need to be too tall, just needed to connect with the existing chimney. No need to cut another hole in the roof. The connection was sealed with insulation cotton and rocks to prevent smoke leakage and a trip to meet great-grandma. Finally, he dressed the fireplace in an outer layer, enhancing its appearance, while sealing all the gaps between the bricks. To dry it quickly, Ake couldn't wait to light dry wood inside. In the wilderness, this kind of stove was the most reliable. Not only did it have great heat dissipation, it could also be used to cook delicious meals. Afterward, Ake cleaned up the cabin. He couldn't stand a dirty, messy environment. This was a photo album he brought specially, hung on the wall so he could admire his handsome photos anytime. As the fireplace temperature kept rising, the moisture in the mud evaporated freely. Next came Ake's little kitchen session. Today he planned to make fish soup. Potatoes and carrots cut into chunks, into cold water. Add salt to taste. The key was controlling the heat. Once cooked, add onions and fish. Cook for another 15 minutes, and it's done. Paired with whole wheat bread, you can enjoy a nutritious dinner. So have you learned it? Well, I've completely failed to learn. Finally, a cup of hot tea to rinse the mouth. Then lie in bed, watch TV, and sleep. Due to his parents' call, he went home for a bit. When he returned, the doorstep was covered in a thick layer of snow. Inside, there was an unexpected surprise. Someone left a beautifully wrapped gift box on the shelf. After checking the infrared camera, he found it was a gift from Santa Claus. Ake couldn't wait to see what was inside, so he quickly tore open the packaging. It turned out to be several house nameplates, thanking him for providing passing travelers with a safe and warm shelter, giving hunters out in the vast, cold night a place to stay. Ake felt comforted after reading it. He looked forward to the cabin helping more people when he wasn't around. But for now, he needed to light the fireplace, because it was just too cold. Luckily, he had enough stored firewood, so he didn't need to go out to collect more. As the fire grew stronger, he boiled some water to warm up faster. Each time he returned, he brought lots of gear. Living in the wild requires thorough preparation. Insulation cotton, lubricating oil, gasoline, and a new power source. Each item was essential. Ake hid them under the bed to take out when needed. After organizing the supplies, considering the weather would get colder, he decided to upgrade the cabin's insulation again. After filling the wall gaps with insulation cotton, he added a layer of thin paper, so the heat from the stove would be fully reflected indoors. Even the area under the door frame was carefully wrapped. I mean, isn't this a bit too thorough? After finishing this task, Ake fixed Santa's nameplates on the wooden door so passers-by could see them easily. After a busy half-day, it was time to sit and rest for a moment, quietly enjoying the snowy forest scenery. Then returning to the warm shelter, looking at the small items scattered on the floor, he nailed a row of hooks on the wall to neatly organize them. Then laid out his beloved bedsheet. After all, it was a gift from his grandma. With a touch of OCD nagging at him, facing the irregular mud marks after drying, he immediately took out sandpaper and started smoothing them. Though dust flew everywhere, it couldn't stop his determination. Despite already having overhead lights, Ake, who loved ambience, still lit 2 candles for himself, eating a candlelit dinner. Sadly, still no wild wife. Tears of loneliness. On the vast Siberian snowfield, Ake was slowly moving forward with his cart. The -25-degree temperature was freezing, but he pressed on with determination. Thick snow slowed his steps. After 2.5 hours weaving through the forest, he reached his destination. Though it had just snowed heavily, luckily, the doorstep wasn't completely buried. Opening the door, a familiar feeling washed over him. As a shelter he built with his own hands, small curtains blocked the outside light. The cold temperature had frosted the glass thickly. Dropping his backpack, he got to work without rest. The first task was replacing the old thermometer. He'd always wanted one that showed both Celsius and Fahrenheit. This return fulfilled that wish. It was freezing outside. The snow showed no signs of melting. He hurried back indoors. After organizing the brought gear, he immediately started chopping firewood to light the warm stove. To safely get through the night, it all depended on it. As the smoke rose, the quiet forest instantly felt alive. Luckily, Ake brought a cup of hot water. While waiting for the room to warm up, he could have a sip to briefly warm his body. Winter days here were short. The sky darkened quickly. The temperature dropped to -25 degrees. The night weather was unpredictable. For safety, he first cleared the snow at the doorstep. In case a blizzard came, he'd have some leeway. Under the warm light, Ake's busy figure was reflected. After finishing this task, he returned indoors, taking out a newly bought smoke detector. Since the stove needed to burn continuously and the cold blocked the indoor vents, with this device, he didn't have to worry about carbon monoxide poisoning. After fixing it, he tested it thoroughly. The effect was top-notch, very responsive. Considering the low nighttime temperatures, Ake brought a roll of blankets, spreading it out and nailing it to the back wall. It provided excellent insulation. The extra part was cut off, perfectly placed at the door as a mat. Rearranging the bed for easier sleep later, Ake geared up and put on a headlamp. It was pitch black outside. For convenience, To check if wild animals visited at night, he tied the infrared camera to a tree. On a tree buddy, he'd check it in the morning. After spending a short time outside, Ake was shivering from the cold. After checking the thermometer was working, he hurried back indoors. After a busy day, it was time for dinner. 2 quail eggs with fresh milk, protein content who knows how many times that of beef. Though in the wilderness, he was still very particular about food. After filling his stomach, Ake opened the door to ventilate the shelter. The biting cold wind rushed in instantly, making the indoors less stuffy. As night deepened, sleepiness crept in. To save electricity, he kept only 2 candles lit and fell asleep peacefully. At 5 a.m., Ake woke up early. The -30-degree temperature outside gave him quite a shock. So he returned indoors to fill the stove with firewood, boiling water to replenish body heat. Not knowing when he'd return next, he first removed the outdoor chimney, repainting it to extend its lifespan. Sitting on the bed, lost in thought for a moment, he could pack up and head home. The weather was pretty good today. Ake got up and filled a bucket with snow at the doorstep. With no water source, he had to use melted snow water for now to meet daily needs. Then came the SAW performance segment. Ake put on cool glasses and set off. The forest was often hit by blizzards, causing many trees to fall under the pressure. But this made it easier for him to collect logs, cutting them in half and slicing them into planks. As an experienced craftsman, his skills in this area were masterful. 2.5 hours later, seeing the sun about to set, Ake decided to stop work. He needed to hurry and move the planks back to camp. The forest wasn't safe at night. Without the cart's help, he had to carry them back and forth, finally managing to bring all his hard work back. Before it got completely dark, the temperature dropped to -13 degrees. Freezing cold. He returned to the warm cabin, sipping hot tea to warm his body, feeling the full sense of security from the shelter. Ake was very comforted. Since the tinfoil stood out too much here, and the wooden cabin wasn't very big, OCD-driven Ake decided to redecorate with planks. Not only would it insulate better, it would also be more comfortable to stay in, and it would look much nicer. Afterward, he cleaned up the site. The wood shavings weren't thrown away, perfect for fueling the fireplace. The remaining planks were neatly stacked at the door. They'd definitely come in handy later. The indoor firewood stock was running low. To avoid freezing in the wilderness, he had to brave the cold to go out to bring back the best logs to the camp, then chop them into smaller pieces with an axe. Once he had enough firewood, he could focus on other tasks with peace of mind. The melted snow water finally came in handy. Worried about wetting the cabin floor, he moved it to an outdoor bucket, washing up with warm water before bed. Today's dinner was simple. Potato skins grated, mixed with quail eggs, flour, and a pinch of salt, stirred evenly and ready to fry. Under the skilled hands of a 5-star chef, the pancakes were soon cooked and ready. Dipped in yogurt, Ake ate with relish. Though it was -20 degrees outside, the indoors felt like spring. The temperature soared to 32 degrees. He'd surely sleep well tonight. Good night, Makabaka. Winter winds swept across every inch of land. Ake, out to gather supplies, was dragging a full cart, stumbling through the snow. Despite the harsh climate, luckily, the forest cabin awaited his safe return. Continuous snow nearly buried the shelter, but the sturdy materials used in its construction meant no worry about collapse. Facing -10-degree temperatures, he didn't dare linger outside. The priority was getting indoors to light the warm fireplace. Only the roaring flames were the only danger in sight. The warming process was surprisingly long. Ake was shivering from the cold, wrapping himself in a blanket to preserve what little body heat remained. What a miserable ordeal. Half an hour later, the chill was finally gone. Warming up, Ake began organizing the brought gear, a pile of miscellaneous items. Considering the high winter electricity use, he brought an extra backup power source. For convenient placement, he added a shelf under the window, fixed with nails, ready for immediate use. The previous plastic shovel wasn't effective, always breaking down mid-shoveling. Now replaced with an iron one, it could push forward without fail. After securely installing the handle, before the sky completely darkened, he took it out to practice. If another blizzard hit tonight, he'd probably be buried tomorrow. After clearing, he still used snow as a water substitute. Ake placed it on the fireplace to melt slowly. The indoor firewood was almost gone, so he chopped some more. Since nighttime consumption was higher, after working so long, he could finally sit and rest for a moment, enjoying this unique tranquility. After resting, the snow had melted. Worried about health issues from drinking this water long-term, he bought a water purifier. Now he could drink with peace of mind. Plus, a water-boiling gadget, and it's pretty stylish, I must say. Dinner was pancakes brought from home. After a simple meal, exhausted from the day, Ake went to bed early. Snow in the forest reflected sunlight off the branches. Waking up early, Ake wandered outside. The temperature was -18 degrees, but the wild fireplace provided warmth, keeping the cabin cozy as spring. Since getting the water-boiling gadget, he had to have a cup every morning to wake up and warm his body. Restless Ake looked at the shelf. Yup, this guy was up to something again. Removing the bottles and jars, and taking down the partition. Recalling the leftover planks from days ago, perfect for making a storage cabinet. If he wasn't around, and a wild rat broke in, it would provide good protection. Nailing 2 planks to the wall, then framing the cabinet. With years of carpentry skills, this small task was a breeze. After connecting the cabinet door with hinges, the cabin gained a new set of solid wood furniture. For easy access to the contents, he attached a pull rope to the door, hanging it on the ceiling when in use. Pretty clever. Afterward, he cleaned the cabin. As expected, he made a pile of sawdust, perfect for feeding the hungry fireplace. The sun still shone brightly outside. According to Ake, local tradition required burning a straw man to bid farewell to winter. He even dressed it up carefully. It actually looked pretty cool. But I can only say, respect their tradition, but I must clearly tell everyone, forest fire prevention is everyone's responsibility. Do not imitate. Just try it, huh? Prayers aside, the long winter still hadn't passed. Bored, Ake had someone bring him a few books. Though in the wilderness, he kept up with spiritual and cultural enrichment. Then sipped tea without tea leaves to warm his cold heart. Smoke rose from the cabin. Life was leisurely. I kind of want to live like this for a few days. To welcome the upcoming Christmas, he hung fairy lights on the cabin, nailing the ambience perfectly. He sure knew how to enjoy this lonely time. The snow was so thick it broke the iron shovel's handle. He had to find a sturdier tree, chopping off the branches and paring it with the shovel. Shoveling snow was a daily must. Ake knew Siberia's heavy snow all too well. Even if cleared, it made coming and going easier. A slip and fall would be a big loss. They say a man is a boy until he dies. During a break, building a snowman wasn't too much, right? Looks like he had some artistic flair. Then he collected more firewood to replenish the fireplace fuel. Though covered in snow, it was no issue once evaporated indoors. Then filled a bucket with snow. Daily water needs depended on it. Washing dishes with melted snow water. Then came the familiar dinner segment. Looking at the quail eggs, Ake couldn't wait. Giving them a full-body massage, sprinkling seasoning and marinating thoroughly. Then wrapping tightly in foil and placing in the fireplace to bake. Just wait half an hour, and a fragrant delicacy is ready. Aroma wafting everywhere. Tender and bouncy. I want a bite too. It's our familiar Ake, trekking across the vast snowfield. The forest's silly deer awaited an old friend's return, unaware that if it didn't flee soon, it'd become Ake's next meal. The shelter's supplies were running low. He had to go to the nearby town to stock up. Though thick snow made walking tough, and the long trek left him exhausted, Ake had to motivate himself, pushing toward the shelter. Finally reaching his destination before dark. Looking at the forest cabin he built, his fatigue melted away. His mood lifted greatly. Though it was late winter, snow was starting to melt, but the temperature was still very low. With the help of his trusty shovel, he could handle the snow with ease, placing it neatly to the side for use when leaving next time. Opening the shelter's door, the interior was as clean as ever. A familiar feeling washed over him. After placing the heavy toolbox, Ake hurriedly started chopping firewood to warm up the shelter quickly. The firewood stored by the stove solved the immediate need, saving him from going out in the cold to collect more. The dry wood burned fiercely, crackling in the fireplace. Ake used the heat from the stove to fill a cup with spring water. While it heated, he could finally sit and rest for a moment, enjoying this unique tranquility. Thanks to the good ceiling, the cabin was warm as spring when sleepy. While leisurely sipping tea, he noticed a flaw in the dining table. To avoid scratching his hands, the particular Ake took action, first sanding it smooth. Once confirmed smooth, applying wood-specific oil, spreading it evenly to protect the table surface. After quickly finishing this, Ake began cleaning the cabin. As a cleanliness-loving man, he always cared deeply about indoor hygiene, and frequent use inevitably produced a lot of dust. Though in the wilderness, his strict standards never wavered. Only a clean indoor environment made living there more comfortable. Snowflakes fell outside, showing no signs of stopping. Even with spring approaching, the unpredictable weather always surprised. After working so long, his body warmed up. Ake went outside to clear the doorstep snow. This spot was the previously dug wild stove. Though it had been unused for a while, to avoid being buried by snow, he had added a cover. Luckily, it was sturdy and hadn't collapsed. It was time to put it back to use today. Ake took out his heirloom handkerchief, targeting a nearby fallen tree. Though the pine branches were wet with snow, they could still be used to start a fire. Though the smoke was a bit heavy, it might sting the viewer's eyes. Good thing the stove was built outside, or Ake would have had his hands full. While the firewood burned fully, he made a tripod from branches. It looked pretty legit once set up. With a wild barbecue rack, he took out newly bought premium ingredients, sprinkling nose-tingling spices, rubbing them evenly and marinating thoroughly. Then tying it with rope to the rack, ready for the test. A smoke and pinewood roasted dinner must have a unique flavor. It wouldn't be done for a while. The sky gradually darkened. The temperature started dropping. Ake returned indoors to wait. But he didn't idle. Finding the temporary wall hooks unsightly, he drilled new holes with a hand drill, nailing in processed shortwood pieces right above the fireplace. Perfect for drying clothes. Then chopping more firewood for nighttime use, since he was idle anyway. After waiting 2.5 hours, snow still fell outside. The campfire still smoked. Ake carefully checked, ensuring the meat was fully cooked, then brought it indoors to feast. The quality was undeniable. As I edit this video, my mouth is watering from the corners of my eyes. While the neighbor starves for days, Ake, in his warm cabin, has achieved barbecue freedom. After filling his stomach, reading a book to lull himself to sleep, he peacefully drifted into dreamland. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Goodbye, and see you next time.